What's up? It's Elliot. I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet, but I have a couple subjects I want to cover. I want to talk about the period of my life between summer 2023 and winter 2024, which I'm probably going to title this video something along the lines of like my month of bad decisions or whatever. It was more like a 6-month period of just doing crazy shit and learning from it, but yeah, so let me set the stage for this time of my life. I had just quit sports, so no more football, no more track. Sports were done. Yeah, I quit sports. I was mainly focusing on school. I was in, if you remember me talking about like my work experience in high school on like my main channel, this was in the middle of that, but it was before I started cubing. So it was basically I was just super locked in with school, I was taking really hard classes. I don't know how locked in I was. I was taking really hard classes in school, and I was working a stupid amount of hours at McDonald's because that's what I wanted to do. And I was dating a girl. I'm not gonna say her name. I need a good pseudonym. I'll call her Cindy. We'll call her Cindy. I was dating Cindy, and she was really good, but there were some problems with the relationship, and the main one was that Cindy and I abused a lot of substances together, which is not always the best thing to be doing. It was kind of the perfect storm. It was like she was into that stuff, I was into that stuff, and she lived with her 21-year-old sister, so it was super easy for her to have access to things that we shouldn't have had access to at our age. And yeah, so we were like, this is a point in my time in my life where I didn't really have like any direction. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have a plan in terms of like, I knew kind of I wanted to go to a competitive school because I knew I could, but I didn't really know why I wanted to do that. I knew it was possible and I knew it was probably going to happen, but I didn't have any plans for it. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I had a little bit of an idea, but it wasn't the idea of like where I ended up now. You know, plans had changed since then. But yeah, I didn't really have any direction. I was just like doing school and I was focused on school, but I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't have anything else in my life that I did besides school, work, and then this relationship that also took up a lot of my time. Yeah, so I didn't really have any real direction, and I mentioned substance abuse was a common thing in this relationship, whether it was drinking, smoking weed, doing other things. We definitely partook in a lot. And quick disclaimer, I don't do my RA is probably watching. I don't do any of that stuff now. Don't need to check my room, but yeah, so there was a particular day, I think it was in August or September, where my girlfriend suggested the idea that we do acid, and I was all for that. And I didn't even wait for her. I texted somebody who I knew would be able to get me acid. I was at work when this happened. I texted him probably 5 p.m. So an hour into my shift, I texted him. I was like, hey, this is what I want. I'm gonna be here. Can you get it to me? He's like, yeah. So probably a few hours later, maybe 9 or 10 p.m. So a few hours before I was supposed to go home. I was probably off I think I was off at midnight this night. He pulls up. I dip out of McDonald's really quick. I go up to his car, and I obtain some acid, and I got 10 tabs, which is a standard quantity to buy, but that's basically 10 hits. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of acid. And so I had this acid. I put it in my pocket. I carried it off my shift, and I went home. And I texted my girlfriend like, hey, I got us some acid. Like, when do we want to do this? I think I don't know what her response was. I'm guessing she just didn't give a response I was completely satisfied with. So what I did, and this is really, 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 really stupid, don't do this, is I took half of that acid myself, which is a lot. That's like, especially for this is something I'd never done in my life before, so doing that all like for your first time, that's a lot. And it fucked me over. I was tripping for probably 36 hours. Like it was on a Friday, so this is before I was cubing, so on weekends I did work. So it was Friday night through all of Saturday, basically, I was tripping. And I tripped at work, I tripped at home. I mean, I went through my normal schedule. I was just on 5 tabs of acid, which is it's a lot. And 36 hours, like the whole duration. That's not like the peak. That's the whole duration from ingestion to sobriety. And that was a crazy fucking experience, bro. That was insane. I remember the point in that 36 hours that changed my life was when I was laying. It was probably 7 or 8 in the morning on Saturday. So near like the peak of this trip, I would assume. I remember like laying down. I was on my couch in the basement. Laying down, I closed my eyes. I was seeing shit everywhere because I was tripping. And I remember I saw just like a vivid image of me, but me like in like 2018 or 2019. So me when I was like 11 or 12 years old, being like hung by a noose and just dying. And that scared the shit out of me. That like, that's some really extreme symbolism just to place onto a 16-year-old kid who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing or what he just took. Like, that's weird. So, I remember that really stuck with me, and that was the whole rest of sorry, I got distracted. The camera probably wasn't right for a second. For the rest of that experience, all I could think about was that image of myself being executed. And after I sobered up and I was, thinking, doing my normal stuff, and I kept thinking about that one specific image, and I determined that that's what I was doing to myself. To give you some context, when I was 11 or 12, I was like, which is, I think, the version of me that I saw. I had just learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube. I went to a competition once every few months. I was bad, but it was like fun. It was what I did. I had hobbies, I had friends, I played sports. I was just like a good little kid, doing what I should have been doing at that age. And I realized I had totally fucked that, right? Because there were a ton of my peers that were the same type of kid at that age and were totally doing way smarter things with my life, or with their lives than I was at that point. So I basically realized I needed to change myself, and I realized the first thing I could do was to start cubing again, because that was the biggest part of my life when I was like 11. Was like I had just started cubing. I thought it was super cool, so I started cubing again. I signed up for Nimble Hands in Noblesville. Was like my first comp back. I went to cubing was kind of already on the brain. A few weeks prior to this experience, I went to Fort Wayne Favorites, which didn't practice that comp at all, and I only even did it because it was in my hometown. Like, I could basically walk to it. So cubing was on the brain. I had recently cubed for the first time in years, but I decided okay, I need to focus on this. I need to focus on something other than what I'm focusing on right now. So what I'm focusing on right now is really bad for me. So I was like, I need to focus on something else, and I picked cubing, and I started practicing a lot, and my girlfriend didn't like that. That was part of the reason that relationship didn't work out. The other part was I kind of did wake up and realize that type of person who was doing those types of things wasn't really what I needed in my life at that point. But I started cubing again. I went to Nimble Hands in Noblesville, and then Bloomington Open was the next comp after that. And I was still dating this girl. I was still doing things I shouldn't have been doing all the time. I was still working a ton. but I was like, I had reached a point of self-awareness where I didn't want to be doing that anymore. I was doing it, but it was against my will at that point. I hadn't had time to remove myself from that yet. But I knew I had to. And a few years into the future, 2 years into the future, I have removed myself from all of those things. And cubing is now all I do, and some guy's playing guitar behind me, so I'm sure you guys can hear that. He's kind of killing it, I can't even lie. I'm at Washington Square again, it's great. But yeah, that's why I started cubing. That's the story of how I started cubing and why I cube, and maybe give some insight into why I take cubing as seriously as I do for those that know me like personally outside of like the internet. I take cubing incredibly seriously, and that's why. That's the story. That's what happened. Don't do what I did, but I will say, if you find yourself in a position where you're surrounded by bad influences and doing bad things, you should try to learn from those bad influences. I learned a lot from that point in my life where I was doing absolutely nothing good with myself, and I think going through those experiences, and that one specific experience, is one of the only reasons I have a somewhat positive outlook for myself right now in my own head. Yeah, that's it. That's just a story I wanted to share.